You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hi, thanks for coming back again to Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. And so it's proving to be. It's been 4 days since you last heard from me, and I left Dix Creek Gap and slept in a tent or a shelter for the last 3 nights, and I'm now in Franklin, North Carolina. I can tell you, had I actually recorded this yesterday, I think the whole outlook, the whole thing about this trip would have been far more negative than it is today. I've had a rough couple of days, and I guess it's just a case of getting used to it. But let's go back to when I left Misty Mountain Inn and went back to the trail with Misha, and I set off at Dix Creek Gap. Day 10. Dix Creek Gap, 69.2 miles, to Bly Gap, 78.2 miles. I was frantically searching the cabin I was staying at Misty Mountain Inn for my sleeping bag liner, and I just could not find it. I must have been searching for a half hour, maybe 3/4 of an hour. Misha turned up, she helped me try to find it, but we couldn't find it, so I presumed I must have packed it in my pack, even though I'd taken it all apart, and it was... I don't know. I was just getting more and more frustrated. I was so annoyed with myself for actually doing that. As it turns out, I got a text from Misha later that Craig had found, or whoever was cleaning the room had found the sleeping bag liner underneath a unit in the kitchen. God knows how it got there, but I had to go without a sleeping bag liner with rain forecast and cold weather forecast. So that wasn't very helpful. But it was being sent on to Franklin, where I was going to get out, hopefully in 3 or 4 days. It was a very sunny day, actually, when we started, and I really, really enjoyed it. It was it's quite a climb eventually from about 2,600 feet to 3,800 feet. You know, ups and downs as always, but I coped with it pretty well, and I think the weather really helped in that. I came across a family, the Malone family, mother and father, and 4 young children, and the young girls, 13, I think 8, 7 and 5, or 10, 7 and 5. I can't quite remember which, but we did speak to them later. And I stopped and had a snack with them. They were delightful girls and really enjoying themselves in the woods. The mother had done the hike 20-odd years ago, and I thought to myself, I'd love to interview them. So I did that later at the camp. I knew we were going to go across the Georgia-North Carolina border. That's always a good feeling, you know, you've actually gone through a state. And even though, you know, I remember the North Carolina-Georgia border from the past, there is no fanfare. It is literally an GA/NC written on a board, nailed to a tree. And that was it. Absolutely no fanfare at all. But then, why would there be, really? But we passed it, so we got out of the first state. So we're into state number 2, which is North Carolina. And this time, there wasn't really a convenient shelter to stop at. I mean, it wasn't a long day. It was about 9 miles. So it was long enough for these early months, or these early weeks rather. And we stopped, a bunch of us stopped at Bly Gap. Bly Gap, if you may have seen it, there's this kind of strange looking tree that seems to be in everybody's photographs, very odd sort of tree. And people set up their tents around the tree and further down the hill and so on. It was quite a convivial sort of evening, actually. We kind of we got our stuff together and started building a fire, and it was just very nice sitting around talking. It was quite cold, but we were all aware that the thing about stopping at just a tent site, there is no privy. So that was going to be fun for the next day. But then just before they all went to bed and they'd all finished their food, I had a chat with the family and said, can I interview you? And they said, of course. So this is my interview with the Malone family. Okay, we're not too sure how well this is going to go, but I've got Chris and Jamie here. Now, Chris and Jamie are here with their 4 daughters, and 5 of them at the moment are in a tent, and the eldest is standing outside the tent. So, Chris, tell us what brought you here in the first place.
Well, Jamie hiked the Appalachian Trail 20 years ago to the year. And when she was hiking it, she bumped into a gentleman who was hiking with his 2 boys and homeschooling them on the way.
Right.
And she noticed the effect that it had on the boys and basically came off of her trail experience, talking about with me and with lots of other people about how she made a goal for herself to bring her children out on the trail and give them a great nature education experience.
Which it certainly is, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It absolutely is.
Jamie's tucked right in the back of the tent. Oh, she's coming forward now. So how different is this trip to you, Jamie, from when you first came?
Well, it's so different. It's so nice. Really, 20 years ago, there weren't as many people hiking the trail. And so it's much more social. I was very much alone most of the time I hiked the trail.
You certainly aren't now, are you?
No, not at all. And so it's so nice. And you know what? With children, I think it's amazing because they point out these little things that sometimes we don't see when we're hiking so fast, and they get really excited or they get frustrated at a point and you stop and you really see something that you wouldn't have seen otherwise.
Yeah, I think that's really cool as well.
Yeah.
Now, I know the girls are all supporting a charity. They're walking for a charity. It'd be really nice if the girls, the smallest of the little bunny over here, is is trying to get all the marshmallow out of the chocolate. So I'll tell you go first. You tell me your name, how old you are, and what charity you're supporting.
Wait, my trio name or my real name?
Both.
Baby Bunny and Sabina, and I'm supporting the food bank.
The Redwood Empire Food Bank.
Nice, that's
Which is
a nice
the local
one.
food bank that Sabina has worked at.
Oh, really? Good for you. And how old are you, Sabina?
5.
This is the quietest you've been, isn't it? Since I've asked you questions. Okay, now who's next? I think the next.
Josie, you're it.
Right.
This is our shy girl here.
You're the shy, but try your hardest. So tell me your name and your trail name.
My name is Josie and my trail name is Wild J.
Okay, and how old are you?
8.
8. And what's your charity?
My charity is Souls for Souls.
And she's collected...
Say that again, sorry?
Souls for Souls.
It's an organization that collects shoes and dollars, of course, but shoes for people in need.
Nice.
And Josie's thought was she is going to go through probably 2 or 3 pairs of boots on the trail.
And the rest.
And so it's an important thing for people to be able to have shoes, and that's the one she chose.
That's a lovely one.
She's trying to collect 2,000 pairs of shoes, and all of her family and friend back home have already almost like 450 pairs of shoes collected.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Good for you. That's a really good one.
She's got to get to at least mile 450.
Now, there's another little sparkle in the back, and you better come forward a little bit just to make sure we can hear you. So what's your name, and what's your trail name, and what's your charity, and what's your age?
My name's Harper. My trail name is the Sparkle Machine. I'm 10 years old, and the charity I chose to support was the wildlife.
The wildlife?
What's the name of the charity?
There's 2. I'm splitting the money between the Sonoma County Wildlife Rescue, local one, and then the Appalachian Trail Wildlife Refuge. One where we're hiking.
Good for you. That's fantastic. I tell you, you've got the most amazing eyes, Harper. You really have got these extraordinary eyes.
She has the same eyes.
Oh, you had same as your mum. That's right. And last but not least.
Okay. My trail name is Maya.
No.
No.
Start.
My real name is Maya.
Yeah.
My trail name is Horsepower, and I turned 13 3 days ago.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sporting Karma. It stands for California Retirement Management Account. So it helps thoroughbred racehorses go into retirement and rehabilitation and find new careers and homes.
Horsepower, isn't it? Must be,
That's
yeah.
our horse girl.
So tell me then, what do you girls think of this so far? Are you enjoying it, or is it hard work? Is it better than you thought it would be, or tougher than you thought it would be?
It's hard work.
Is it?
Yeah. But I also like it.
Do you?
Yeah. It's hard but exciting and fun.
Yeah. It was hard. I think every uphill is hard, don't you? Oh,
That's where I slow down.
they get me every single time. And what's your favourite part of the trail?
Well, I was really looking forward to hiking in the snow, but then when
Really?
the snow froze
dear.
everything, I kind of changed my thought on that. But now my favorite thing is like the creek crossing, getting to camp, and the downhill, not the uphill.
Quite right too. Well, look, I tell you what, I think you guys have taken an amazing thing to give your children this opportunity. What is it? What's the toughest thing for you?
I think the toughest thing is, first of all, it's twofold. That it's wonderful that we're doing this for to raise money for charity, but it also puts pressure on to get to the end.
Of course.
And we have a lot of people supporting us, which is fantastic, and you don't want to let them down for putting all their efforts in. But then on the day-to-day, it's hard because it's hard because we have to.
A little bunny friend, what he keeps whispering in her dad's ear.
She wants me to say the uphills are the hardest, and they are pretty tough.
Yeah.
And
but looking after your family.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Mum and Dad,
we have to
you
get
look
us
after your
through,
family.
and we have to get them through.
Yeah,
and
darn right.
There's going to be days where, I'm having a bad day. There's going to be a day where she's having a bad day, and so we all just have to work really hard together to get each other through.
Sure, team game.
Support each other.
Team game.
Yeah.
Well, I
absolutely.
wish you all the best in the world, and I hope you really enjoy the rest of your journey.
Thank you. Can I say one other thing?
Absolutely.
I would say, since we are doing this for these charities, that if anybody is interested, you can look at awaking-dreams.com.
Awaking-dreams.com.
Awaking-dreams.com, and that's a blog that we'll add to maybe once a week whenever we have service or whatnot. And you can also find all the information for making donations to any of these charities through that blog. You can also follow us at Malone Family AT on Instagram.
Perfect. Okay. And by the way, this is Chris's first venture into social media.
It is. So it's a work in progress.
I think he's strongly into it. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
What a lovely family they were. I really, the kids when they came into camp, because we'd met during the day and we'd sat and ate together. They all waved at me, and the family was so friendly. And the dad and mum were always so positive, which must be tough. We did see one of the little girls, I won't say who it is, throw a pack down and get a bit irate, and they're going to struggle. But then this is a struggle for everybody, and looking after myself is enough. So how on earth they look after those four lovely, lovely girls, I have no idea. But bless them for taking them out and giving them this adventure. I know that they were seen at a shelter the next day, so they obviously got there. I just hope they stay safe, and get all the way to Katahdin. That would be a lovely story if they did. Day 11. Bly Gap, 78.2, to Standing Indian Shelter, 85.9. Well, the morning came. And the first no privy poop was the order of the day. So I did what you do. You go away from camp, you dig yourself a hole and do your business, and you head back up. And it is unpleasant, but you know what? You get over it incredibly quickly. And I've never known anybody make a fuss about it. It's just amazing. And to be honest with you, we were more worried about the wet day ahead. We knew it was going to be very wet. Turned out it was going to rain for the next 48 hours, almost non-stop. And the climb out of Bly Gap was very intense. I certainly don't remember that from last time. And I really, I struggled a bit getting up there, but I got there. By now, with all the rain, it was coming pretty far hard now. The trail was getting wet. We were walking through mini streams from time to time, which is kind of odd. It got muddy. And then, of course, there's the dreadful rocks. As soon as you get water on rocks, they seem to transform into something else. So I was very careful to get all the way, down and all the ups without falling over. In fact, I'm probably jumping ahead a bit here now. After these, let me think, 10, I've been on the trail for 12 odd days, something like that. I have not fallen over once. It is a miracle. I fell over 45 times when I did the trail first time. I know I'm going to fall over. I just know I am, and almost certainly tomorrow. But so far, I've had no falls at all. And I think it's because one of the things you slip back into is this knowledge of pole placement and foot placement. I know where to put my poles. I know how to make them work for me. And these people who do this without poles, I just have no idea why or how they do it. I certainly couldn't do it myself. I stopped at Muskrat Creek Shelter for a quick bite of food. I'm aware all the time I should be eating more, and I'm really struggling to eat enough. I know I am, and I shouldn't really. I mean, I'm not complaining about it. It's just me. I just, when it's raining, you're less inclined to do it. But so it was helpful to be able to stop at Muskrat Creek Shelter for this quick bite. I mean, I really soldiered on there. I really wanted to get to the Standing Indian Shelter and try to find a place in the shelter because the rain was coming down hard now, and I didn't really want to put my tent up in a wet day. So I really, because I wasn't the first to get to Muskrat Creek Shelter, but I ate quickly and got away very quickly. And I really, really, worked hard to get there. We ended up at about 4,700 feet, Standing Indian Shelter. It was surprisingly higher than I remembered. And I got there, and it looked like it was full. And the guys said, "Oh, we're going to move up a little bit." So they got me in. And that is a real result, let me tell you. Your mood is immediately lifted because I didn't want to have to deal with packing up a wet tent the following morning. So I got in there. It was cold. It was in the 30s and seemed to be getting colder. And then one of the ladies there said, she was checking her watch and said, "It's getting warmer." And it was. It got warmer to about 47 degrees. And in the end, it wasn't too bad. I stayed warm. I got out my bed after a while and got myself some food, then straight back into bed. And I spent all night long tossing and turning. I could not get to sleep. Apparently I did snore once, so perhaps I did get to sleep, but I don't recall getting to sleep at all. I don't know if it's because I'm just uncomfortable on my air pad. I'm a side sleeper, and I find it kind of, my hips are hurting a little bit. I guess that's something to do with the hike, but it was a long night, and well, things weren't going to get better the next day. Day 12, Standing Indian Shelter 85.9 to Carter Gap Shelter 93.5. It was a torrid night. There were latecomers to the shelter. They couldn't get in, obviously, because we were absolutely jam-packed full. And they started gloomily setting up their tents in the rain, the pouring rain, in fact. I did feel sorry for them, but really grateful that I was in the shelter. As I say, the temperature rose as the night went on. And, I certainly got warm enough and I stayed dry, which was great for me. The noise, though, of the rain on the shelter was constant all night long. And it was still coming down in the morning. And in the morning, the tenters really were a disconsolate lot. One guy I haven't mentioned, a really nice fella with a fantastic trail name. His name's Czechneck. He's a redneck from the Czech Nation. He called himself that. So I think it was just a great name. And he was always positive and always, he'd come out here with a hammock, and it was freezing for him, absolutely freezing. So he had to get a tent. He bought a tent at top of Georgia, I think it was. Bought a tent which was a demo tent. It actually had demo tent written on the side, and he tried to seam seal it himself. It was a disaster. His tent was full of water. Everything was soaking wet. And poor old Chetnek, he was standing there shivering, saying, "I've got to get out today. It's a 20-mile hike, but I've got to get out." And he wasn't looking good at all, and he headed out. Now, And I know I shouldn't have done this. I also headed out with no breakfast. It was too miserable. It was too wet, windy, cold, but I knew it was a mistake. I decided to have some cold coffee. I just poured some instant coffee in my cup and some cold water on top of it. It was quite predictably revolting. But I knew it was a mistake. I just could not get started. It was real uphill to the top of Standing Indian Mountain. Beautiful, beautiful climb, and it would have been great had I been able to see something, but we were in cloud and rain just all day long. And I just felt terrible. And I started to doubt myself and let a gloom come all over me, which was so annoying and so unlike me, really. But, you know, you've done this before. You think you can do it. I don't think I was cocky about doing this again. I knew it was going to be tough. But really, I was facing some of these uphills thinking, I just cannot get up there. There's no way. And I was gasping for breath and so on. I don't know what was happening to me. And eventually, I got to the shelter at Carter Gap at about 2:30 in the afternoon. And because I was so slow all day, tenting in the rain was really the only option. And I set up tent and went to the shelter for lunch. As it turns out, it was a really great atmosphere in the shelter. There were several young women in there and a family of a dad and his 3 sons, all in their 20s. How cool is that? In fact, I spoke to them the following day, and I'll play that in a minute. It was a great atmosphere, and we were all kind of pulling together. And I loved that part of the AT. You know, it was pretty damn miserable there. Those of us who had to set up tents were getting almost, what's the word for it? They were almost comforted by people in the shelter. Everyone was friendly. I really enjoyed it. I went to try to sleep for an hour in my tent and fell asleep. And because I was so exhausted probably. And I woke, it was almost dark, but I was warm. So, and I confess I shouldn't have done this. I didn't get out of my bed. I stayed in there. I didn't hang my food bag. I did put it inside the plastic bag I've got, which contains my dirty washing. I wrapped all my dirty washing around my food. And I thought, well, if a bear can smell that, well, he deserves what he gets, I guess. So, I also didn't go back to the shelter to eat. So I didn't eat dinner, obviously, that night either. Wasn't a good idea. And I realized I must do something about the food. So I tried to sleep and was unfortunate. I just was finding it difficult to sleep again. I was a bit miserable. But I thought, I'll be okay. I'll get through this. I know how to cope with this. You know, I think when you've done this before, you know which pieces of stuff you can wear and which pieces you can't wear. And that morning, actually, in fact, out of Standing Indian Mountain, I'd put on my wet shirt and my wet T-shirt from the day before because I wanted to keep some dry stuff for when I got to Carter Gap Shelter. That's how you manage your stuff. You know, you try to keep stuff clean and dry, or at least dry, to make sure you got something to warm to put on when you get to camp. And I'd done that, and I was pleased about that. But anyway, I tried to go to sleep, had another poor night, and then, of course, it was today. Day 13. Carter Gap Shelter 93.5 to Rock Gap 105.8. It poured all night long. And then about 7:30 or 8 o'clock, it stopped. It just totally stopped. And most people were heading out. Actually, the girls headed out really early when it was still dark. Don't know where they were trying to get to. But I knew I had about a 12-mile day ahead of me, just over 12 miles, in fact, 12.3 miles, to get to Rock Gap, to get to Franklin. I wasn't going to hurry. I knew I could do it. I had a proper breakfast with a couple of people still there. And because I was really determined to eat and drink properly, I was sure that was my weakness from the day before. I just hadn't eaten properly. So I slammed some food down myself. I put food in convenient places in my backpack ready for the day as well. And, you know, to get about the, you know, go about the hike in a proper way, a way in which I should have been doing all the time. And then, of course, I wanted to interview the guy and his sons, and they were all there. So let's have a chat with them. Okay, we're at, I've even forgotten the name of the shelter now. What's the name of the shelter?
Carter
Gap Shelter. Carter Gap Shelter. And I've just met a family who are doing a brave thing. It's a father and his 3 sons. So would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Dave.
You're the dad?
Yes, I am.
And give us your last name again?
Updegrave.
Updegrave.
I'm Luke. I'm the middle son.
I'm Ben. I'm the oldest.
And I'm Kale, the youngest.
Okay, so how's it gone so far? Firstly, you've enjoyed hiking together. How's that worked out for you?
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, we've all been getting along, so it's good.
Yeah, and how did you work out? How were you able to work this out that you can get away from work and things like that?
We all just quit our jobs.
Just like that.
Yeah, just like that. Honestly.
I didn't really think about it.
Quitting your jobs, yeah. So no plans for when you finish them.
Maybe, but who knows? It's a long time from now.
That's right. Yeah. So what's been the most challenging thing so far for you all?
Probably rain.
Probably dealing with the wet weather, the rain.
Yeah.
Put on wet clothes.
Is that tougher than the cold, do you think?
Well, a combination of both being wet and cold. I mean, you can handle the wet when you're warm, and you can handle the cold when you're dry, but you put those two together, wet and cold.
Wet and cold is a killer, isn't it? It's a killer, isn't it?
Yes.
And you plan to go the whole way?
Yes, that's the plan at this
And
point.
you've left your wife at home?
Yes, she plans to meet us probably 3 or 4 different spots along the trail.
All right. And how's she coping with doing all the things you were doing?
She's good. We keep giving her orders for baked goods, so we're keeping busy.
Yeah, we call her every few days and text her. And
So what the logistics like? Do you all carry your own stuff, or I know 2 of you share a tent and the other 2 share a tent?
Yes. For food, we're responsible for our breakfast and lunch ourselves, and then we can get together for dinners.
Right. Okay. And do you tend to hike together during the day, or are you all the same pace?
Yeah, somewhat.
Yeah,
of course,
kinda...
being the old man here, I'm a little bit slower. They let me catch
I
up.
feel your pain. Yeah. So, have you done any hiking before?
Mm-hmm. A little bit, but nothing like this.
Right. And has it surprised you how difficult it is?
Yeah, but we're starting to get used to it. My legs are starting to feel good.
You're getting used to being living like a feral animal. We all tend to. I tell you, Ben here doesn't, because Ben brushes his teeth. We were all about to start the interview. Ben was brushing his teeth for a good 4 minutes, so he obviously likes to keep clean in certain other ways.
Yeah, you gotta keep them white.
And don't you think it makes you appreciate the things you have at home much more?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
It did for me straight away. Flashing toilets, showers, and stuff like
Water.
that. Water, yeah.
Every time you need water, you got to walk like a quarter mile down to the stream just to fill up your water bottle.
And what's your plan? When do you think you're going to finish, or are you just till you get there?
Well, we're hoping middle or end of August, so 5.5 months or so. We started February 26th.
Okay,
26th.
Oh, same as me then. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm hoping end of August as well. So perhaps I'll interview at the top of Katahdin the same day.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, thanks for that, and good luck.
All right. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thank you.
They were such a nice bunch of lads and having a blast with their dad. How cool is that, really? So I set out, plenty of food inside me, and today was just chalk and cheese compared to yesterday. The profile wasn't too bad, so that really did help me, obviously, but I handled the climbs far, far better. My friend Anna Huthmaker, she says to me, to get uphill, just take tiny, tiny steps. Make sure you keep your breathing going. And I did that quite a lot, and it really worked out for me, I've got to tell you. I was stopping regularly for rests, and I would eat if I could, and I would get water. I would stop and drink water. I was feeling so much better the whole time. And really, we needed this because the day was dominated by Albert Mountain. I don't know if any of you have done the trail and you know what Albert Mountain is, because I actually stopped before we went up it to eat some extra energy, because I wanted some extra energy. It looks like a blip on the guidebook. It's just 400 feet in 1/3 of a mile. But oh my God, it is almost vertical. And there's scrambling hand over hand. I remembered it from the first time. And, I don't remember loving it the first time. This time, I just absolutely loved it. Something about this, hand over hand stuff I really enjoyed. And I got to the top. I passed a couple of people on the way up, which is pretty good for me. And there's this huge fire tower at the top, and you can climb up about 4 or 5 stories, and you almost feel like you're balanced on the edge of the world. And there's this little mini building at the top. You can go inside, glass all the way around, just this panoramic view all around you. It's just absolutely beautiful. I actually FaceTimed my wife so she could see it. What a view. The difference that eating and drinking makes, it really was, as I say, like chalk and cheese. I was determined to get into Franklin today, and I had to reach Rock Gap, and it was going to be, as I say, my longest day so far. Once again, the terrain was on my side, but all the negativity of the previous day was pushed aside, and the day got warmer and warmer. There was no more rain. It was still muddy, and I slipped several times, but I still haven't fallen over. And I'd been in a text conversation with Miss Janet, that legendary trail angel, and I said I was going to get out of Rock Gap. She said I can come pick you up, and she did. She was there soon after I arrived, and took me and another young guy who'd had to get off the mountain. He's on a long section hike. He's got some sort of chest problem, and he was so grateful to get a lift from Miss Janet. And she, in fact, typical of her, is going to take him back to his car at where is it? I can't remember. Just before the smoke is Fontana Dam. That's right. Sorry about that. So I got into Franklin. I stayed at the Franklin Terrace Bed and Breakfast, and here I am right now recording this. But that's the end of the week. It was an interesting week. I really enjoyed it. I feel I'm getting my mojo back a bit. I did get down. Okay, you're allowed to get down. I feel that this trail makes you more emotional somehow. It's very visceral. Everything about this, the emotions are much stronger than they would be in real life. And I did allow myself to get down, but I'm back on top again and feeling pretty good. So I'll see you next time.